To know your enemy, you must listen to what they say when they believe no one is listening. For years, the high-ranking officers of the German Wehrmacht, men steeped in centuries of Prussian military tradition, looked at the United States Army with nothing but contempt. They saw a mongrel society of factory workers and clerks, incapable of producing true warriors. But by 1944, that arrogance had turned into a cold, paralyzing fear. In secret diaries, captured dinner conversations, and desperate radio intercepts, the German elite began to speak of a new breed of American commander. These weren't just managers, they were predators who had mastered the Germans' own Blitzkrieg and turned it into a death sentence for the Third Reich. Today, we aren't just ranking generals, we are diving into the German archives to find the 5 American names that made Hitler's top strategists realize the war was lost. This is the story of the commanders who got inside the enemy's head. Before we hit the tactical list, we must address the Grand Master. The Germans didn't fear Dwight D. Eisenhower as a battlefield duelist, they feared him as the master architect of their destruction. He was the man who wielded the crushing weight of American industry like a sledgehammer. To the Germans, Eisenhower was the unstoppable tide, a force of nature they couldn't outsmart because he simply outproduced and outplanned them. The German soldier valued order. They believed that once the sun went down, the battlefield belonged to the professionals who stayed in their foxholes. Then came Terrible Terry Allen. Allen, commander of the Big Red One, was a brawler who taught his men one terrifying skill: night fighting. German units that felt secure at dusk would suddenly find themselves in a bayonet-point nightmare. Allen's divisions didn't just attack, they appeared out of the shadows. Captured German reports often mentioned the psychological exhaustion of facing Allen. To the Germans, he wasn't a general, he was a ghost they couldn't shoot. If Terry Allen was the brawler, Lucian Truscott was the superior professional. The Germans respected skill above all else, and Truscott was a master of his craft. He famously instituted the Truscott Trot, a marching pace of 4 miles per hour that far exceeded standard doctrine. In Italy, Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, one of Germany's best, launched everything he had at Truscott's beachhead at Anzio. Truscott didn't flinch. He was unshakable. German commanders noted in their memoirs that Truscott was the one American who did not make mistakes. To face Truscott was to face a machine that slowly, methodically crushed every countermove you made. There is a specific kind of fear that comes from knowing you are being erased from the map. Major General James Van Fleet was the personification of that fear. His philosophy was simple: the Van Fleet load. This meant raining down artillery fire 10 times more intense than anything the Germans had ever seen. German officers captured after the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest spoke in awe of the industrial destruction Van Fleet unleashed. They called American infantry tactics unsubtle, but they lived in absolute terror of Van Fleet's guns. To face him was to face the full, terrifying power of the American arsenal, directed by a man with an iron will to obliterate his target. Fear isn't just on the ground. By 1944, the German leadership looked at the sky and saw the end. Curtis LeMay was the man who turned the German sky into a fortress of lead. He developed the combat box formation, a wall of overlapping machine guns that turned his bombers into flying destroyers. Luftwaffe legends like Adolf Galland wrote of the desperate struggle against LeMay's industrial logic. LeMay wasn't fighting for territory, he was dismantling the German heartland, factory by factory, city by city. He represented a ruthless innovation that the resource-starved Wehrmacht simply could not stop. There can only be one. George S. Patton Jr. was the only Allied general the Germans truly recognized as one of their own, a master of the Blitzkrieg. Alfred Jodl, Hitler's chief of operations, called him the American Guderian. This was the highest honor a German could give. They feared his unpredictability and his lightning-like action. Patton didn't follow the rules. He kicked them in the rear before they could even set a defensive line. The Germans feared Patton so much that the Allies used him as a ghost. Operation Fortitude, the great D-Day deception, only worked because the German High Command refused to believe the invasion was real unless Patton was leading it. He was the one general who beat them at their own game. These 5 men, the night fighter, the professional, the sledgehammer, the innovator, and the speed demon, proved to the world that a mongrel society could produce warriors more feared than any in the history of Prussia. But who do you think was the truly decisive one? Was it the speed of Patton or the industrial fire of Van Fleet? Let us know in the comments. We read every single one. And if you want to see how these generals actually executed their plans, check out our deep dive into the Battle of the Bulge right here. Don't forget to subscribe. History is written by the victors, but it's understood by those who study the losers.